Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for the 15th edition of the CoveritLive University web series. My name is Spencer Kitley, I'm the Customer Success Manager for CoveritLive, and we appreciate you joining us here for this great session that we have planned. Today's topic is hidden treasures. You may ask, what is that? There's a lot of features in CoveritLive that you may be neglecting, and we're here to help you kind of figure out what features you may not be utilizing and what your events may be missing to help you optimize that experience for your viewers. Now, before we get started, I want to take you through a brief overview of what to expect in today's session. We expect this webinar to last roughly 30 minutes, and at its conclusion, we will entertain questions which can be sent via the WebEx client chat window. That's the green tab at the top of your screen. Additionally, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can contact us through that same WebEx chat window, and one of our members of our team will be happy to answer your questions. Tomorrow, we'll post this webinar on the web where you can view it again, refer others to it, and we'll also send you an email to remind you so you can pass that along to any colleagues or coworkers that were unable to attend today's session. Also wanted to remind you, you can connect with us at any time. Email us at support@coveritlive.com. Members of our team will be standing by to answer any questions or issues you may be having with your events or with your account. Also, follow us on Twitter @CoveritLive or like our Facebook page, CoveritLive. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce the host of today's webinar, the General Manager of CoveritLive, Ben Schneider.
And thanks everyone for joining and taking the time today to join us for this edition of CoveritLive University. As Spencer mentioned, we'll be covering some hidden treasures or kind of some miscellaneous features and things. Some of them are newer, some of them are things that have been around for a while, but what we found is they're features that are often overlooked or easily missed that can enhance your events or the organization of your CoveritLive sessions and make things a lot easier, whether it's for reporting or whether it's for the in-event experience. On top of that, we'll also take a sneak peek at a very quick sneak peek at a few new things that actually were released today that you may not have seen yet if you haven't been into your CoveritLive account or into the event studio. We released some pretty significant enhancements today, and we'll do a deeper session on that in an upcoming CoveritLive University session, but we'll give you a little sneak peek today. The primary topics we'll focus on, and number one, are some of the new things, starting with the new Embed Code and some of the different functionality you have to easily adjust the responsive design dimensions, as well as the new features like the pinboard and layout elements that you have that were made available in recent releases. We'll also show you through a number of event settings that help you simplify the workflow for your producers, whether it's things such as being able to hit enter to make your posts directly into the event, or whether or not you want that to be a little harder, or you want to make long form entries and using rich text and the rich HTML editor to do that, as well as some other things that can just make your events run more smoothly. We'll also give an overview of groups functionality, which is something that is particularly useful for larger organizations, but can also be helpful just in the general organization of your users and events by category or topic, or even multiple sites, whatever fits best for your use. And then we'll show some of the options you have around exporting your content and keeping your events up after the event is over, including the ability to give your users RSS access or to save a version of the event locally. So starting off with the new Embed Code, we went through some of this in the last CoveritLive University session, but because it is still very new and we've added some additional features, we thought it would be good to touch back on this and make sure that everybody's aware of some of the new features we have here. The new Embed Code and the new Embed Designer is now available whenever you're creating a new event or editing an existing event. And what it does is it gives you a whole lot more control over the layout of your CIL window. You can still get to the classic legacy Embed Code that shows the iframe and has the scroll window, but if you prefer to have an infinite scroll version in your page, or a percentage width instead of a fixed width and things like that, then you now have those options available to you. The other thing that the Embed Designer does is in addition to giving you more flexibility over the layout and the actual look and feel of your event, you can now actually configure multiple different embed codes for the same event. So previously, settings that were available in templates or in the configuration of the event couldn't be edited once the event was started, and you could pretty much only have your embed look one way. Well, that's not true anymore. With the new Embed Designer, you can now reconfigure your event multiple different ways and have it display different ways on different pages, and I'll show a couple of quick examples. We'll jump into that right now, actually, and go into one of our example events. And I've been running a scoreboard for the Longhorns, one of my favorite teams. And if I jump in and edit an existing event, I'll get the same view if I'm adding a new event as well. But if I scroll down, there's now a new section for installing the viewer window, and this is the Embed Designer. You'll notice here that to get to the old legacy embed code that's just a simple copy and paste, you can still do that. You set your width and your height. You also now can set your title page option and whether or not you want new entries on the top or the bottom, depending upon the type of event you're running. For certain types of events, particularly if there's infinite scroll, we will actually limit these options. But if you're running Q&A, you may want them in one place. If you're running a live blog of breaking news, you may want them to display differently. All of those options are still there. But if you want to utilize the new features, you can select the Embed Code tab. And here you have the ability to configure your width, your height, or select 100% width or infinite height, as well as title page. The new pin board, which is where pinned items that we added in one of our most recent releases will show up. And again, whether or not you want new entries on top. And additionally, you can also choose one of our skins to apply to this particular version of the layout code. Now, one of the cool things you'll notice is you get sort of a preview of this as you make changes. So if I change my width to, let's say, 100%, you'll notice that it expands in the preview window. And if I perform infinite height, you'll notice that it expands there as well and gives some visual indication around the height. If I were to turn the pin board off, whenever let's say I have restricted my height and I turn the pin board off, then you'll see how it looks in that view. And pinning will still show up, but it shows up in a collapsed view in that format. But you get an idea here through the preview of how these things are going to look and how they're going to work. You'll also notice this if you flip your entries around, we give you a little indication of where your entries are going to reside either way. And overall, you get an idea of how your embed code is going to look. Of course, you can also just make your settings and then grab your code and stick it on the page. So I'm going to set up one right now, and we'll put it in a completely blank page. I'm going to give it infinite height, but a restricted width. And we'll have the pin board on. We'll have new entries on the top. And we will pick the basic straight ahead skin. So now my embed is right down here. It's automatically been updated. I'm going to drop this into a page and save it and publish this to my site. And then we will check it out. Again, this is on a blank page with no template and no other content on the page, so just the event is all we'll be looking at. And we'll see in just a moment how that event now is displayed on the page. So I have a scoreboard running, I have a fixed width, I have the skin that I selected, and I've got infinite scroll for all my content. And I can go back and read content from before, and it just loads into the page. Notice there's no scrolling around the event, just the overall page scroll. But let's say I want to change some of those things. Let's see how it's going to look with 100% width, but we're going to actually restrict the height to 800. Not necessarily what I'd recommend, but just to give you an idea of how the different ways things can look. We'll grab the text skin, and we'll make that our new embed code. Now once we see that live, we'll see it look very different. And refresh the page. So now we see our 100% width. It's taking up the full width of the page. It's in a fixed height based on the amount of pixels I said, which was 800. So obviously this view would not necessarily be ideal because pictures are going to show up very, very large and people would have to scroll a lot. But this is done mainly to give you an example of how differently the same event can look just by changing the options in the embed code. I put that I wanted to enter newest entries on bottom instead of top, and you can see that it flipped where our comment box and where our entries, the information center, all of those things are, and completely rearrange the page. The really cool thing, and what we would highly recommend, is that if you're putting something on a page and you're dedicating, say, for example, it's a live blog to following a news event, or it's some second screen coverage or a Q&A, we would mostly recommend that you do infinite height and 100% width. This 100% width will not take up the whole page. It will take up the full width of whatever is containing it inside the page. So if your page template has a restricted width down the center or down the left side for articles, it will fill up that particular portion of the page, but it won't overlap with anything else. And so it'll look like a regular article. And with the infinite height, it will continue to build out the page and look really sharp going on down the page. For something like that, where you have a dedicated page to it, we would recommend 100% width, infinite height, turn on the pinboard capability, have your newest entries on top, and adjust your skin based on whatever you would like, and put that embed in the page. But if you want a teaser or a preview that exists maybe on the right rail or on a sidebar or something on some of your other pages, then you would come back and adjust and have a much smaller window. So maybe it's a 300 width by 300 high. You turn off infinite width, you turn off 100% height, maybe even turn off the pin boards. That way really what users are seeing are just the last few entries, and you use that as a teaser. So again, a lot of flexibility, so you can use this in different ways. It also allows you to use it on different sites and have it match the look and feel best for that site in case you're syndicating your events either within your own organization across multiple sites or multiple different sections of a site, or even outside with another entity altogether. So there's a great deal of flexibility, and I'll show a quick example of this live as well. So in this case, here's one that I've already set up. It's an example looking at Yahoo News' live room. And then whenever this loads, what we'll see is some examples on the right-hand side where there is an event put into the right rail. It's got a fixed width, so that way it fits just inside of the right rail exactly, but it does have infinite scroll, and it shows all the content updating regularly. And again, I can go and load more. In this case, it also does have the pinboard example as well. So you can see how you could use that as potentially a teaser and then have something else altogether going on the page. So hopefully you can see there's a lot more that you can do with the new embed, and we have more things coming out very soon in the upcoming releases that will allow you even more flexibility to do more things with responsive design, to have more and greater control over the look and the feel of the event in different situations. Our goal is so that way you could have this one live experience running on multiple pages, multiple sites, and in multiple different displays and layouts depending upon the audience and depending upon where you're placing the event, but still be controlling it from just one event. And users can have very different experiences depending upon whether it's on a tablet or it's in a native app or it's embedded inside of your blog versus on your standard article page or template or on a feature dashboard or whatever it may be. So a great deal of flexibility and a lot more user engagement from the fact that they can view the event in a number of different ways and have it much more appealing to the layout of the page. As I spoke to, and to show you a few examples right here in the layout, these options also now give you infinite scroll and variable width, which supports responsive designs, and we have some more responsive improvements coming. And you can also do all of these overrides at the embed level, so that way you can change these multiple times and redeploy the embed multiple times in multiple places to have it completely adhere to whatever page or environment that it's in. And here's a couple of examples of events right here. One, you can see pinning in the mobile context and see the layout in the mobile context where a user can just simply scroll right through it and there's no secondary scroll. And it's filling up the width of the page, as well as on the right-hand side where you can see it completely filling up the article as well. So now we'll jump into the event settings, and most of these are very, very small things, but they can make a big difference into the overall running and execution of your event and the ease of use. A number of things that we'll cover, and I'll show you real quickly in case you're not familiar with these settings, is where you can toggle the option to use simply hitting enter to post your updates on or off, as well as turning avatars on and off and having videos autoplay, whether it's Instagram or YouTube, as well as some things that you can do to change the order of the smart stream. And I'll show you where these examples live inside the Event Studio. So first, if you look into settings, whenever you're inside the Event Studio, you'll notice there's a number of on-off and flexible options here for running your event. And you may not have looked in these very regularly. Previously, these settings were maybe on the event setup, or they were buried in other places inside the account page. And now they're easily accessible here for the event, and you can change them on the fly from the Event Studio. So a number of things that you can see is the event title, which you can adjust if you needed to, your display name, and you can turn on or off the display, your display name with your entries inside the event, depending upon whether or not you want that shown. And same thing for your avatar, which you can edit right here inside the Event Studio, as well as turn it on or off. Similarly, you can turn reader comments on or off. This is really helpful if, let's say, you're going to be running a long multi-day event, or maybe you're running a ticker, and at certain times you want to take interaction from your users and answer questions or publish their comments, but at other times you're going to leave it running automatically. Maybe you're pulling in Twitter content or other forms of social or RSS content, and you're not going to take questions. Well, you could turn comments off so you're not misleading your users. And that way they know that they can't submit right then. So that's something that you can do back and forth on the fly. It's very useful. Same thing with readers being able to send attachments or attach, say, images or files whenever they want to send in a comment. And similar options for displaying reader avatars or enabling email comments, system sounds, all things that have been consistent in the system for a while. Some newer options are around YouTube autoplay and Instagram autoplay. And you can see right here that at any point in time you can turn those on or off individually for the event, and they can be event specific. We've had users who very much want this to work both ways. In some cases, maybe you're publishing Instagram videos or YouTube videos just for your users to see what's going on, and you're publishing multiple at the same time. In that case, we would recommend autoplay off, because if you publish 2 to 3 videos right after each other and they all autoplay, well, then the audio is going to overlap, and it's going to be a very confusing experience for your audience. However, some of our customers are using YouTube videos or Instagram videos and using those as advertising options or things that they want to drop in the stream to promote or monetize the use of their event. And that's a great example and a great use case for one of a number of ways that you can monetize your events. But in that case, you do want it to autoplay because, in essence, it is a commercial. So in those cases, you can turn it on and have autoplay enabled. You can even change it during the course of the event, and it just depends upon how you want to utilize those videos into which way you want to set those settings. But those are right there under settings, very easy to access, and can be done on the fly. The other one that was mentioned is the enter key to post. So right now I have this option on, but I'm going to turn it off and show you the example here. And basically what this does, and this is how CoveritLive worked previously in the past, was if you're typing an entry, and I'll make up something real quick to put in here. Obviously, you can always go and just click the post button, but if you're doing a lot of updates quickly, that's not the most efficient. But if you'll notice down here, there is a shortcut indicator that if you hit Control plus Return at the same time, it will automatically post your entry. So I'm going to do that now. I hit Control plus Return or Enter, and it will post that. Otherwise, if I hit Enter, without hitting Control, then it's allowing me to do a paragraph or a line break. Which may be useful if you're writing some long-form content or want to have a few different things that you want to break up inside of one post. However, if you're doing a lot of updates quickly and you don't want to have to press Control-Enter, you don't want to go to the button, what you want to be able to do is just type and enter, and have those things automatically posted, similar to what Facebook does with comments and other similar tools. Then you can simply enable the Enter Key to Post Text button. And whenever you do that, simply hitting Enter, no other keys, no other shortcuts, just hitting Enter or Return, depending upon your keyboard, will post it. And you'll also notice the shortcut notice updates to reflect that. Something very small and very easy, and you can change that during the course of the event even if you want to, and users can adjust that themselves depending upon preference. But it's something that can make your events run much more quickly and much more expediently, and it's just an ease of use thing that we found can help a lot, particularly in those cases where you're live blogging and doing a lot very, very quickly. So again, a lot of these are very basic settings. Some of them have been around for a long time. Some of them are new, but they can definitely enhance how easily and quickly you can publish content in your event and how smoothly it runs, depending upon how you want to use those settings. One other one that I almost forgot about was the ability to change the order of items in the Smart Stream, and this is a fairly recent addition. So you've always been able to search by keyword or filter by content type and even tags in different colors and things, but now actually, as of a few releases back, you also have the option to resort the items that appear in the Smart Stream. By default, we show the newest at the top, with the assumption being that if a lot of content is coming in, things are moving quickly, you're most likely to publish the items that are the most recent and the most relevant. And if they get to be a few minutes old, they're probably no longer relevant or key, and you've gotten the best of the content that you want, and the other items you don't need to publish. However, there's some cases where we know we have users who want to publish everything, even if it takes them a little while to get through it, or they at least want to review everything. And in that case, they want to continue seeing the oldest content in the top so that way they can review it and then decide what to do before moving on. The pause feature is also very helpful in that, so that way it prevents new items from coming in whenever you're trying to review things. But if you simply want to resort, you can now select to put the oldest items at the top. And you'll notice that whenever I go to the top, I see the old items that come back from further back. This one's all the way back to June, so I can review those items and then publish just the ones that I want and continue to move on. So again, another very simple feature, but can help drastically with ease of use. Moving on, another great feature that often gets overlooked is the rich text or the HTML editor. And this is something that's available to you whenever you're composing a post inside the Event Studio. And those who know about it know that they can therefore format content, they can format their text, they can basically do a lot of the same things you do in a standard blog platform or in Microsoft Word or in Pages or whatever you use for word processing. You can also edit the HTML directly if there's something more advanced that you want to provide inside the content and you're comfortable with doing that. And so there's a lot of flexibility here. By default, we have this off just to minimize how much is displayed on the screen and ease of use. However, it's something that you can very quickly turn on inside the Event Studio simply by clicking the button right here. Turn on rich formatting. If you mouse over, you get the little Q, and then whenever you have that, you now get a toolbar for formatting your content and creating rich entries. It also is useful if you want to do something like provide a much more long-form piece of content. So let's say I'll grab a little bit of one of Spencer's blog posts. So we're not just doing a few 1 or 2 sentence entries. You can see that I can post all of that long-form content in there. I can do some bolding, I can underline. Whatever it is, I could increase the font size overall. Again, a lot of standard things that you can do. You can add links, bullets, numbering, all sorts of different formatting things. And as mentioned, you could also jump directly into the HTML if that's something that you're comfortable and want to do as well. And then once you make those changes, you can post that entry, and you now have a richly formatted entry with a lot of additional content, with formatting based on what I've done. And now you have a much more intriguing and much more true article layout format display for your content. Also know that once it's published, you could always go back and edit it or remove it and re-add if you want to make some additional changes. So next, moving on to groups. Groups are a great feature, particularly for large organizations, but they're also useful if you just want to organize your users and events based on the type of events or tickers or social streams that they may be running. Groups are very, very useful. You can use them. A lot of times customers use them to organize by topic. So say it's by news, sports, weather, or other things like that. They want to do it by category, which is a great example, but also maybe they want to do it by region. If you're a large organization and have different users across multiple regions and you want to organize that out for internal use, then you can do that. By divisions or even different sites. So if you're crossing multiple sites, it may make sense to set up a group for each site. So that way you can track individual sites and how they're using and have their events automatically published into one place. And those are some of the great benefits of groups. You can have have a group set up so that way all of the content within a group, for any users in that group, all of their events, whether they're completed, upcoming, or live, will get published to a common cover page, which can also be used to publish to a channel page. And you have the option to enable RSS feeds by group, in addition to enabling RSS feeds by the author and by event. And then another advantage is whenever you're reviewing your data and statistics, you can review that by group. So in addition to searching across a date range or specific types of events, you could limit it to a group to see how all of the events and all of the streams within a particular group have performed. Lastly, another big benefit is the ability to create and share group-specific templates. And this is really useful. Let's say if you have different groups, maybe your groups are used to align with different sites or different verticals within a site, then you can have templates that match the layout for that particular portion of the site. So maybe as the sports vertical looks different, or maybe a certain segment of different sites actually have their own layout, and you want to adjust some of the basic template settings and save that, then you can do that. They're shared with the group, so that way those events can all look consistent and be reused, but still be distinct from other events in the account. I'll show an example a little bit of how you can get started with groups. And then I'll also point you to some great resources online where there's a lot of additional detailed information because there's a lot involved with groups. So groups are accessible under Extras whenever you're logged in to the My Account page within CoveritLive. And very simply, if you want to add a new group, you simply see that it'll be on the Add New option, and then I can type in a group name, whatever it may be. Maybe it's a site, maybe it's a vertical, maybe it's a category. I can choose an image to accompany that. So that way on channel pages and such, it will show up and kind of give a visual notation. We'll just put something simple there for now. So now I've got my sports group. I'm going to save it. And once it's saved, I have the option to add users from my enterprise account if I'm in one, or I can invite other users to join that maybe are outside of the account or haven't signed up yet for CoveritLive. If they already have a CoveritLive account, then I can do it by username, or I can invite them to join CoveritLive altogether with an email address. So I'll go ahead and add a user to the group. You can send them a customized message in the email that goes out to them, letting them know that they are now a part of the group. And then I can see my users, and I can manage those at any time. I can remove or adjust as necessary their access to the group. Now, once the group is created, and I can see all the groups that I've created here, and I can see that I maintain the default publish settings, which is that any new events created moving forward from users in that group should be included automatically in that group. Those things I can all adjust as needed. And you'll notice a few different places now where groups will show up and will be beneficial. One thing that I might want to be able to do is to add events to the group. And I can automatically now, moving forward, so the user D. Glenn, David Glenn, any events that he creates moving forward will automatically be added. And as they're completed, they'll remain with the group, and as they're upcoming or whether they're live. But I may want to go back now and retroactively add some of our old events to the group. So I can do that by going to either my live events or my completed events. Picking a particular event, we'll take the CILU Big Game from a few months back. I'm going to click on Publish Options, and you can see here where now I see my groups listed, and I can select which groups that I want this to be published to. So I can go selectively put events, even older ones, into new groups. It will not automatically pull old events into a group from a user, because there may be a number of reasons why you don't want that to happen historically, but it will do it moving forward, and you can go manually add events from the past to the group. I'm going to do that now. So that event has been saved, and I can do that with multiple others. And so now those events are being included in that group, and we'll see a few different places where that will show up. And one of the main ones is in utilizing cover pages. And cover pages themselves are also a nice feature. They're kind of a more expanded widget where you're showing not just a single CoveritLive event or stream, but a CoveritLive event paired with upcoming events and access to completed events, or other live events, all in one place that really makes it easier on your users. And you can embed that as its own widget into your website anywhere that you like. It's also something that's automatically included on channel pages. So if I want to add a new cover page, I'm going to add one for sports. And notice I can make it personal, and it's just tied to my account to do specific things with, or I can assign it to a group. And I'm going to make that correspond with the sports group that we've just created. Oh. That name's already in use, probably from me demoing it before. We'll call it More Sports. Add it to my sports group, and now we have a cover page for moresports.coverpage.covertlive.com. That's a hosted version of the cover page that you can always reference that we have available for you. That can be altered and customized, but you can also just grab an embed code and put it on your own site as well. You'll see here you have a lot of options around customizing the cover page embed, and adjusting how it looks, much like you do the traditional embed window with CoveritLive. So you can make the listings versus the events side by side or stacked. You can customize some of the text and colors around the listings. You can adjust the width and the height, and then grab that embed code and place it on your site. Additionally, much like you can link an individual event or stream to a Facebook page, you could also do that with a cover page and have everything from the cover page flow into the Facebook page. Under a custom tab. So now, what does that look like? I'll show you the example of the hosted version on the CoveritLive site. And again, you can also grab this as a widget and put it on your own site so it matches your own look and feel, just like the rest of your CoveritLive embeds. It shows me any content that's currently live, and it automatically defaults me to that event, to the live content. It shows me any completed events that are a part of this cover page, which in this case is tied to the sports group that we just created. And I only added one completed event, and we haven't created any additional new ones just yet. But I can access those completed events right from here and essentially reach an archive and go back and review that and watch the replay. If there were upcoming events set up by any of the users in this group, they would automatically show up under the upcoming events page. And if there were other live events from that user, they would also show up here as well. So you can see it gives you a nice place to put all those upcoming events, completed events, anything that's live now in one place. You can have it hosted on our site. You can also have it embedded as a widget, and it's automatic based on the organization of the group. So it gives you a nice dedicated place to collect similar events together, or events from different organizations. However, it makes sense for your group to pull those together. But one of the last and probably most beneficial things for using groups is that you can now also look at stats and analytic data based on the group. So once you have groups set up, you'll notice that whenever you come to the stats and analytics page, by default you're viewing stats for your events. You can look across your entire enterprise account, or you can also select group events. So now I can select groups, and then once done that, I can pull in any one of the groups that I've created, whether it's news, sports, which is our example today. And again, I can do it from all members or only members of that particular group. I'm going to leave it for all members and view those results, and you can see that you can get aggregate data as well as individual event and stream data for specific events that you can then download from restricted to that group. This is really helpful if you want to look and see how a particular site is performing and you're running multiple sites, or a particular section of live events and live streams, maybe in news versus sports, etc. And you can break them up this way instead of just looking at all of them or looking at by date range or individual users. And this is really, really helpful. There's a lot of great functionality about groups, and a lot that I've just barely scratched on. So if you have questions about that, please always feel free to email us at support. We'll try to answer some when the session wraps up here in just a few minutes. But also know that all of this content and more is available on the Support Center online. So if you go to CoveritLive.com, hit Resources, and head over to the Support Center, you'll see a lot of great content about this and many other things in using CoveritLive more effectively. And you can always just search for groups, and you'll notice a lot of great content here in results, whether you want to look specifically and learn more about stats and analytics in groups, or cover pages and how those works, or an overview of groups altogether. So a lot of good reference content. You don't have to remember everything I said or go back through the video later. You can go back and find out a great deal more here if you're interested in learning more and want to take advantage of groups. So moving on to sort of our last topic. There's a number of great reasons why you want to leave your events available for your audience after they're over. Even though they may be live and they may be covering breaking news, a lot of times there's really good social content, or there's really good commentary and pictures from on the fly, various different things that users want to go back and see later, or they remembered something from the event and they want to go back and watch it in replay mode. So it's really beneficial to have that content somewhere on your site in an archive. And if you're using channel pages or cover pages or groups, and some of those examples I've shown will automatically do that for you. But if you're just putting the embed on your site and then taking it down, you're missing an opportunity for your users to revisit that content, potentially generate more page views for you, as well as lengthen the engagement opportunity. And there's a few different options we have for doing that. The simplest is to just leave the event up. Even once you've closed it out and said it's no longer live, if it's still on the page, users can access it in replay mode, and they'll go back and see that the content is static, but they can go back and view it all and review it at their own discretion. But there's a couple of other options as well, particularly if you're concerned about minimizing maybe some of the clicks and things like that. You can use a few different options. One of them is our RSS capability. And this is not just for when the event is over. RSS actually is available while the event is live if users want to subscribe to updates or want to be notified of future events from a particular user or future events in a specific group. So there's a lot of great uses for RSS whenever you enable it. But it's also useful for getting the content of the event out afterwards if you don't want to use the API or one of the other means and want to display it elsewhere on your site. There's also a save content locally option where we'll actually spit out all of the HTML, and then you can put that in your own page and adjust it like you want and have it available as an article after the fact in your own CMS or your own blog system. Quickly, I'll show where you access these couple of different features. So if we go back to my live events, you'll notice there's a shortcut here. So if I hit up our CIL demo ticker, and I hit the RSS button, it'll expand and it'll show me the different RSS subsets that I can access. One is for the group, so I can see all of the events that are coming up available in this specific group, and this may be really useful for users who really just want to follow your sports events or news events. It can be really powerful. They'll get this RSS feed actually gives them a link to the event and lets them know when it's coming up. So if they're using it to monitor it in a reader or something else, they'll automatically get notifications about that. They can also follow along for the writer, and this is similar to groups, but it's in the case where they want to see everything from a particular author that particular author may run. But then there's also the specific event RSS feed, which might be the most useful, particularly if you want to get the content out after the event's over, or you want to make it enable it so that way audience members can follow it along via RSS or pull it in while the content is updating. So you'll see here this actually has content from the event. And it has a lot of the updates, including images and different posts that we've made, and they can follow that along through RSS feed. You can pull that into an RSS reader and do a lot of cool things with it. You may also want to use it internally, whether it's for your audience, where they can follow along, and you can enable the RSS option when you're setting up the event and make sure that they have access to it. And you can see that option right here whenever I'm editing or setting up an event to allow RSS. But you may also want to use the RSS feed to put it in and have it syndicate to other blogs or other sites more easily than having to use the API or go and copy and paste the embed or something like that in other systems. You can also use a cool tool like RSS Graffiti, which is a sister product of ours, that can post things automatically to Facebook. So if you wanted to grab the RSS feed and then have that content automatically published to Facebook as you're updating it live and have it go to the wall, not just in a custom tab, then you could do that by grabbing the RSS feed, setting up an RSS Graffiti account, and then selecting to post that to your Facebook page using the CoveritLive RSS feed. So a lot of great things, a lot of other really cool tools and things like that that you can do, so that way you can syndicate that content elsewhere and use it in a number of different ways. The last example we'll look at for getting that content archived or put into other systems easily is the Save As, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. So we'll take our completed Big Game CILU event, and if you'll notice right here, I've selected it, and I have the option from the menu bar up here to save that content locally. So if I click that, it's going to expand, and it's going to give me what looks like an embed, and it's actually a big copy and paste for my event. So here, I'll post this into a blank page, which will just have this and nothing else. We will save that, and then we'll take a look at it. And here you can see a replay of the event. I've made some alterations so that way it's showing full width and has a much bigger height. You can, just like a regular embed, these can be constrained down to where it shows it in a scroll window, or you can adjust it to where it takes up the full page and just looks like HTML drop directly in the page. There's flexibility, and you can, you or members of your team can alter the content that is copied and pasted into the page after the fact, and then have that as a part of a piece of page or a piece of content on a page in your CMS or your blog or whatever it may be, instead of hosting it directly from CoveritLive. In this case, you have the ability to get SEO benefit out of that because it's pasted and the content is locally inside of your site. And you also aren't counting against your CoveritLive clicks if you're concerned about that. So it gives you a lot of great advantages, and we highly recommend that one way or another, whether it's through one of these means or just leaving up a replay, that you leave that content out there and let your audience access it, because they do want to access the events after they're over oftentimes for a while to come, and it's a great thing that you've just built and put a lot of time and energy into creating during this live event, and to have it disappear once it's over is not getting full advantage of that live content. So as I mentioned, a lot of this information and more is available on the Support Center. I highly encourage you to check it out. Also follow along on the blog. We've been doing blog posts on a number of these topics, both from our product and engineering team as well as from Spencer, covering a lot of these different features as well as linking to more in-depth detail around them. And you should also check out our What's New page. There's a new update that just rolled out today. It has a lot of great new features. I mentioned at the top of the session that we will cover those in more detail in an upcoming CoveritLive University session. But if you want to get a quick preview of what some of those things are, you can go over and hit the What's New page, and they're all available to you now and accessible directly. Some of those examples, which I'll show you right here from the event studio real quick before we wrap up, include now the ability to have a piece of content that you want to queue up inside the Smart Stream and you don't want published directly to be able to be written. So let's say I have something that I want ready, queued up, and I haven't put it inside the media library, but I don't want to go back and do that now because now my event's live and I don't really have time to do that, although that is another option prior to the event. But I want to have it available and tagged and in the queue and ready to publish at just the right time, then I can do that. I can even give it a tag color. I can save it. And then based on my sort order, I can see where that item is. And then at just the right time, whenever I'm ready, I can publish that item over to the event. So that's really nice and convenient, giving you a quick and easy way to have content that's loaded up and pending and ready to go ahead of time. But even more powerful than that, you'll also notice some new features around being able to reply to pieces of content inside the event. And it could be items that are already live, like this one right here, which I'll reply to. And now you can see that it shows a reply directly to that one particular piece of content. And I can add additional replies if I like. So multiple replies are permitted, and it's not just on my content. It can be on any piece of content, including social content. And it's not just from the live content. I can do that from within the Smart Stream as well. So let's say I have a piece of content in here that I've queued up, whether it's social, whether it's a question from a user that I want to answer. It doesn't matter. Any type of content I can hit reply to. And this is queued and not yet live. And so once I add this, I can then reply and simultaneously publish the original piece of content and the reply all at once. So you look at our new item there, and you can see they're grouped together visually, so that way you can see the post and the response together, which is great for question and answer sessions or responding to specific feedback from within the event. It's really, really powerful, as well as just being able to reply and engage with specific pieces of content throughout the event. So some really cool features there in being able to queue that content up. You also have more flexibility around your panelists now, including the ability to, whenever you give them a panelist role, producer roles have the full access to the event studio, but if you give them a panelist, you can now give them basic access, which means they only see the left window and can write content directly into the event and adjust their avatar in basic settings. Or you can give them access to the Smart Stream. They won't get access to the search bar and to all of the social functionality, but they will get access to see things in the Smart Stream so you can queue up questions and answers for them. So some really cool and powerful stuff there. And then lastly, I'll show one final thing on the front end as I'll ask Spencer to check out and see if we have any questions and get ready to answer those. I'm going to jump over to our live blog example that's constantly running, our live stream for Cover It Live now, which you guys should all check out. We put a lot of great examples in here, show off a lot of the new features, and do a lot of cool things, as well as just put some fun, entertaining things that we like from the world of news and sports and how Cover It Live is being used. One new feature that will be coming out upcoming is some new ways to see your photos. So live today, you'll notice if you have a photo published inside of your live blog and you mouse over it, there's a little icon down here, and this is for a slideshow. You can also just click anywhere in the photo. What that does is it loads the image that you just clicked on in a slideshow or in a photo gallery format. And then it also has the content and caption information that was included with the image below it. But on top of that, you can now peruse through all of the images that have been added to that particular stream like a slideshow. And that's automatically included in the viewer window experience. So pretty cool thing, really great for your users. And a really nice, engaging experience. So if they want to flip through just the visual and the media pieces of content that have been added, they can do that very easily and then close back out and return to the rest of the event at any time. Those are things that are live, available to you today, brand new, that have just launched this morning. And so we'll be going into those in more detail in an upcoming session. And look for those features now. Get inside the event studio, start playing with them, and experimenting with some of the new pieces we added. We'd love to hear your feedback. There's lots of more great stuff coming, and all that comes from feedback that we get from your use. So I think at this time, if you have any questions or anything that we can answer in the session now, we'd be happy to do that, or we can also follow up afterwards.
And just a reminder, the green tab at the top of your screen for the WebEx settings, you can click on chat there, submit your questions. Do have a couple questions that have come in throughout. We've answered some, but we'll answer them for the group. Question earlier, is the 100% width setting, is that the responsive design?
It is. That is responsive. That is the responsive piece. If you use that in conjunction with the infinite height, then essentially the window will be adjusting, the Cover It Live experience will be adjusting to whatever the containers are around it. So it'll take up 100% width of whatever it's contained within. And that allows you to put responsive design around it, and it will automatically adjust to fill that based on how the page adjusts. Now there are some additional improvements coming, such as auto-refreshing that width if the page size changes and things like that, which aren't necessarily available yet, but will be very soon.
Another question just came in from Kathy Sheldon. She asked, if you select the inner key option, does it control the panelist experience or just the organizer?
That'll control that experience for you. So that way, if people want it to be different for each one of them for their context of the event studio, then it can be. So that way, if you like the inner option, want to go quickly, but a panelist wants to hit post or review or whatever their preference is, that can be individualized.
All right, keep the questions coming if you have them. I had a question here earlier from Herb. He asked, in which use case is it best to use the oldest on top and the newest on top in the Smart Stream?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And in general, for things like following along, it depends on two things, actually. Back up one second. There's two things. One is depending upon the layout of your event and the page. We actually force newest entries on top if you do infinite scroll. And the reason being there is that as the page continues to go down and down and down, people aren't going to scroll further and further down to read the new content. They're going to think to scroll down to go back and read the old stuff, and then when they've caught up, they're going to want to go back up to the top and just stay at the top of the page and have that content come in. So if you're using infinite height, then new entries on top, we highly recommend that, and it's actually enforced on certain layout settings when you're using infinite scroll. Also, we recommend that, like if you're doing question and answer sessions and things like that, it's generally more helpful to have the newest entries on top. People are following along the most recent pieces there and asking a question right at the top of the page and things like that. So in general, those are two great examples of when it should be on top. However, if you're using the classic embed or a fixed height and things are scrolling along in your live blogging, then we'd recommend doing it at the bottom. We've just found that it's mostly intuitive for users. They'll see the content continually updating. The bottom, they're going to scroll to the bottom once they've caught up anyway, and the content will continually be being added down there. And they're used to adding comments at the bottom of the page. So if it's something where they're just adding comments and rather than outright sort of question and answers, they're more used to doing that at the bottom of the page in almost every setting, whether it's Facebook or on news articles or whatever it may be. And so having the newest entries at the bottom and your comments and all of the information center items at the bottom where they can follow along easier is most recommended in that context.
All right, thanks, Ben. It doesn't look like we have any further questions. Wanted to remind you, you can email us at any time. support@coveritlive.com is the email address. Follow us on Twitter. You can hit us up that way with just random odds and ends @CoveritLive. Like us on Facebook @CoveritLive, and we'll look forward to seeing you again here in our next CoveritLive University session. That's Thursday, November 14th at 11 a.m. Eastern. We haven't determined the topic yet for that one, but stay tuned to CoveritLive.com, the CoveritLive University tab. It's right there on the homepage. Check that out, and we will see you again here next time, Thursday, November 14th at CoveritLive University.
Thanks, everyone.
You can hit F10 to stop the recording.